We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis in Meseches Gitin. This is Gittin Daf 53b. On the previous summon, there was a machlokas amoraim whether hezek sheino nikr is shmei hezek or is not shmei hezek. And Chizkiah said hezek sheino nikr shmei hezek. If you have a hezek that's not recognizable, a damage that's not recognizable, that is considered damage. And the Gemara asked from a brisa because the brisa was talking about disqualifying a person who disqualifies the mechatos or the paraduma. And it said that if you disqualify the mechatos, which would seem to be a hezek sheino nikr, it said you're not chayav bidei adam. And so it was a question on Chizkiah, if hezek sheino nikr shmei hezek, you should be chayav bidei adam. And the Gemara answered in terms of the mechatos that the case is shakal behen mishkalos, and since it's shakal behen mishkalos, that explains why you're not chayav bidei adam, even though you're disqualifying the mechatos. Rashi over here is going on the previous amud, sheshakal behen mishkalos sheytuluyos bekaf maznayim, meaning you have a scale over here, and on one side you have the mechatos. Vayodeya mishkalam, and he knows the weight of the mechatos. V'nasan basar l'shakal bekaf shniya, then he takes some meat to weigh that on the second side. The lo avid behen ma'isa biyadav, he hasn't done any action over here. Ela b'machshava mifsali, it's only because of his intention that it becomes disqualified. Rashi in the previous amud talked about intention being similar to a grama, and so in any case, that's why you're not chayiv bidei adam. And the Gemara asks, 1 second, but Rava says, Sheshakal ben Mishkalos Ksheira, that if you use the Mechatas as a weight, it doesn't disqualify. It's actually Ksheira. So how can we say that's the case of the Brisa? Clearly the Brisa is talking about a case where it creates a disqualification of the Mechatas, because it says you're Chai B'dei Shamayim, it just says you're not Chai B'dei Adam. And the Gemara answers, Lokash, it's not difficult, Ha begufan, ha bechenegdan. It depends if you're using the Mechatas themselves in order to measure, or you're doing it opposite the Mechatas in order to measure. And Rashi explains, the Rava bechenegdan, meaning when Rava said that it's not disqualified, that's kenegdan kidefarishis. That's, as I just explained, that's Rashi right above, that he had a scale. So he had the Mechatas on one side of the scale, and he was weighing something else on the other side of the scale. In that case, actually, the Mechatas is not disqualified at all. Umasnisa, and the Braisa, the Mashma of Sulos, which is Mashma, that they are disqualified when you weigh it, or when you use it as a weight, Sheshakal begufan. That means he's using the Mechatas directly in order to weigh. Kederach hatabachim, like the butchers, lishkol basar b'mayim, what they do is they weigh the meat in the water. Sheyesh lam kli sheyesh bo shnasis v'nosnin mayim borishona v'nosnin basar b'mayim ad shamayim olim l'roshim hasheni. In other words, they have some kind of vessel and it has markings on it, and they see what level the water's at. Then they put meat in and they see what water the level rises to. V'chavneu kvar shev'mishkol litro beis litros hamayim olim magin loso haroshim. They know exactly where it's supposed to rise, and so in that situation, that's where we would say it does create a disqualification. That's begufan. But the Gemara says, how could you say that's the pshat in the Braisa? Begufan maisa ka'avidbu. But if you're doing a begufan, then you're doing a maisa with the mechatas. It's not simply a machshava. V'hezek sheino nikr shmei hezek b'dinei adam nami l'chayiv. And we're back to our question. If according to Chizkiah, hezek sheino nikr is considered hezek, so you should be chayiv even b'dinei adam. We haven't answered the question then in the Braisa. And the Gemara finally answers, Eli idi v'idi v'chanegdan. Both are talking about when you're using the mechatas and weighing opposite them, like on a scale. V'lokasha, but it's not difficult. Hada asech daite, hada lo asech daite. And Rashi says, Masnisa da asech daite, mishmi rasan al yedei hamishkol, sheshakal behem. In other words, you're supposed to be designating this only for mechatas and nothing else. And now he's turned his attention away from watching them for the purpose of mechatas, and instead he's weighing with them. V'nifsalu b'hesach hadas. That hesach hadas creates a disqualification to l'mishmeres l'meinida. The pasuk says it's got to be set aside for the meinida. Shetzricha shimor tamid, it has to be watched, guarded all the time for that purpose. Umiu b'dinei adam lo mechayev, but nevertheless you're not chayev b'dinei adam. The grama b'almahu, like we said, it's just a grama. V'hadu Rava b'dil lo asach. And Rava's case is where he never had a hesach hadas from watching them for the purpose of the mechatos. And the Gemara continues with the two dots. Mesiv Reb Papa. Reb Papa asks the following question. It says in the Brisa, Gazel matbeya v'nifsal. Let's say a person steals a matbeya coin, and then the government disqualifies the coin. Or truma v'nitmis, he steals truma and it becomes tamei. Or chametz, he steals chametz, v'yavar alav Pesach, and then Pesach passes and disqualifies the chametz. You're not allowed to use the chametz anymore. Omer lo hareshal chalafanecha. So the thief is allowed to say, just take back what is yours. Meaning, if he still has the exact same object, he has the same coin, he has the same truma, he has the same chametz, even though these have clearly lost value because they've been disqualified in various ways, he can say hareshal chalafanecha. Here's the object, take it back. And so the Gemara now says, V'yamer hezek sheinu nikr shmei hezek. Now if you say like Chizkiah, that damage that is not recognizable is called damage, so he's essentially returning a different product over here. He's returning a damaged product. Hi Gazlan, who this individual is a Gazlan, umemon namalia boy shalume, and now he should have to pay back money. That's what happens in a situation where you steal something and the item becomes damaged. You have to pay back money. And the Gemara says to Yufta, the Gemara says this is a refutation of Chizkiah, because if you hold that hezek sheinu nikr shmei hezek, you would not be able to simply say harei shel cholef in these cases. And Rashi says, "V'nifsal shepaslosa malchus." Again, the government disqualified the coin, or nitmis me'elah. He doesn't make it tamei; it just becomes tamei on its own. So he can say harei shel cholef anecha uvilvad sheishalim lo oso atzvo. He has to give back that exact object. The korina beveishav is agzel asher gazel. That's called returning the thing that was stolen. Sharei lo nishtana, because there was no shinoi. It's the exact same object as it was before. But the Gemara says, is that really true? V'ish mei hezek, if it's considered damaged, michti migzal gazli midamashche. He stole it when he made a kinyan on it. The kamalei b'rashu saying it was in his rishus. V'chikam mishalim le davar hanizuk mishalim le. Now he's paying him back something that's damaged. V'lo kamasha gazel. He's not paying him back exactly what was stolen. And again, the Gemara says that is a refutation of Chizkiah. And the Gemara continues, Leimen ketanoi, let us suggest that this issue of hezek sheinu nikr shmei hezek or not, that's a machlokas tanoim. As we learned in a brayso, hametame v'hamedameh v'hamenasech echad shogeg v'echad chayiv divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says, by metame, medameh, menasech, these are all cases of hezek sheinu nikr. He's metame, the items of his friend, he mixes into the items of his friend Shruma. He's menasech, meaning to avodah zarah. In both cases of shogeg and mezid chayiv, according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, b'shogeg pater b'mezid chayiv. If it's done b'shogeg by mistake, then pater. But if it's done b'mezid, then chayiv. And the Gemara says, my lav is it not? B'hakam miflagi, this is exactly the machlokas. The marsavar hezek sheinu nikr shmei hezek, that Rabbi Meir holds, hezek sheinu nikr is considered real damage, that's why it doesn't matter shogeg or mezid. Marsavar, and then Rabbi Yehuda holds, lo shmei hezek, it's not considered damage, and he only applies a knas to a case of b'mezid. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, the Kuli Alma hezek sheinu nikr lo shmei hezek. Really, it could be, everybody agrees hezek sheinu nikr is not hezek. V'acha b'kansu shogeg, atu mezid kamiflagi, and here they're arguing whether we apply the fine to a case of shogeg once we're applying the fine to a case of b'mezid. The marsavar kansu shogeg atu mezid. Rabbi Meir holds we do apply the fine to the case of shogeg because of mezid. Umarsavar lo kansu shogeg atu mezid. Rabbi Yehuda holds no, we apply the fine to mezid, but we don't apply the fine to shogeg because of mezid. And the Gemara says, V'rami de Rabbi Meir ad Rabbi Meir, V'rami de Rabbi Yehuda ad Rabbi Yehuda. We have a contradiction within Rabbi Meir, and we have a contradiction within Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya, as we learned in a brayso. Hamevashal b'Shabbos, if somebody cooks on Shabbos, b'shogeg yochal, if he cooks on Shabbos by mistake, he can still eat the food. B'mezid lo yochal, but if he does it on purpose, he cannot eat the food. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. You see that Rabbi Meir is not applying the knas to the case of shogeg. That's a contradiction. In our case, we said that he is applying the knas to a case of shogeg. Rabbi Yehuda says, b'shogeg yochal Motzei Shabbos. B'shogeg, he's allowed to eat it only on Motzei Shabbos. We do apply a knas to shogeg according to Rabbi Yehuda. B'mezid lo yochal olamis, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if he does it b'mezid, we're even more strict. He can't eat it forever. Rabbi Yochanan Hasandler says, b'shogeg yochal Motzei Shabbos la'acherim v'lo lo. If he cooks b'shogeg, then it can be eaten on Motzei Shabbos by other people, but not by himself. B'mezid lo yochal olamis lo lo v'lo la'acherim. If he does it b'mezid, it cannot be eaten forever. That applies to him, and it applies to others. And the Gemara asks again, Kasha Rabbi Meir, Kasha Rabbi Yehuda. This seems to be a contradiction within Rabbi Meir and a contradiction within Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara answers, Rabbi Meir lo Kasha, the contradiction within Rabbi Meir is not difficult. Kikonis b'derabbanan. It could be that by derabbanans he's actually stricter because people might not take it as seriously. And so our case, which is talking about derabbanans, hezek sheinu nikr, is not considered hezek. He applies the fine by shogeg as well. B'doraisa lo kanis, but in a case of cooking on Shabbos, which is a doraisa, he does not apply the fine to a situation of shogeg. But the Gemara asks, "V'menasech doraisa," but one of the cases was actually menasech. That's a case of a violation on a doraisa level because it's an isra of avodah zarah over there, the kakanis, and he is applying the fine. So you see, even by something which involves a doraisa, apparently he does apply the kanas. And the Gemara answers to that, Mishum Chumra da'avodas kochavim kanasle. Since over there it's very strict, avodah zarah is a very strict isser, so therefore he applies the fine in that situation to keep the person away from avodah zarah. The Rabbi Yehuda lo kasha, and the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we also don't have a contradiction. We could say the other way. Ki lo kanis b'derabbanan. It could be he does not apply the kanas by a situation of a derabbanan, b'doraisa kanis, but if it's a doraisa, he would apply the kanas. V'hamenasech doraisa v'lo kanis, but the Gemara says again, menasech involves an isra of avodah zarah, it's a doraisa, and there is no fine. And the Gemara says the opposite logic for Rabbi Yehuda. Mishum chumra da'avodas kochavim mivdal bedili minei. Because avodah zarah is so strict, people separate from it anyway, so there is no need to apply the knas in that case. And Rashi explains, Metamim Medameya Isur D'Rabbanan, who again, we're making a distinction between Isur D'Rabbanan and Isur D'Oraisa. So Metamim Medameya are certainly Isur D'Rabbanan. Kavan Deloshme Hezek, because in terms of damage, again, Hezek Shein Nikar is not Hezek. Ein Kan Isur D'Oraisa, there is no Isur D'Oraisa. V'divrei Sofrim Tzrichan Chizek. We said according to Rabbi Meir, something that's D'Rabbanan, you need to be mechazik it, you need to strengthen it, and that's why we apply the knas in that case. Hilkach Kanis, that's why there's a knas afashogig, even if it's done by mistake. Aval Bishul B'Shabbos Isur D'Oraisu, but Bishul B'Shabbos is an Isur D'Oraisa. V'lo Shchiach, it's not common Dovri that you transgress such a thing. Hilkach Lo Kanis, that's why again Rabbi Meir does not apply the knas. And then the Gemara said, Mishum Chumra D'Avodah Zarah Laharchiko Mino Isur Kanis. It could be that Avodah Zarah, because it's so strict, we want to keep him away from Avodah Zarah. We apply the knas. We avodah lechizuk. We are mechazik that case. And then the Gemara said with Rabbi Yehuda, it's the exact opposite. For Rabbi Yehuda, be'isr doraisa mishum David isr chamor kanis larchiko. By isr doraisa is more strict. We apply the knas. Avol b'derabbanan the kill lo kanis as shogeg. But by derabbanan, which is a little more lenient, we don't apply the knas to shogeg. And finally, Rashi says within Rabbi Yehuda, when it comes to avodah zarah, mishum chumra avodah zarah bedili minei. When it comes to avodah zarah, which is a doraisa, but since it's so strict, people separate anyhow. V'lo tzarich lemiknasei, so there's no need for a knas in that case. And the Gemara continues, V'rami de Rabbi Meir ad Rabbi Meir b'doraisa. We have a contradiction within Rabbi Meir by the oraisa cases. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Hanoteya b'Shabbos b'shogeg yikayim b'mezid yayoker. If a person plants on Shabbos b'shogeg by mistake, so then he can allow it to remain. But if he does it on purpose, if he does it b'mezid, he has to uproot it. Uvashvius, but if he does that during the Shemitah year, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid yayoker, whether he does it b'shogeg or b'mezid yayoker, it has to be uprooted. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says b'shvius, if it comes to the Shemitah year, b'shogeg yekayim b'mezid yayoker. So then if he does it b'shogeg, he allows it to remain. But if he does it b'mezid, he has to uproot it. Uv'Shabbos, and on Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're stricter. Bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid yayoker. Whether he does it b'shogeg or b'mezid, he has to uproot it. And Rashi says v'rami de'oraisa adoraisa. By the doraisas, we have a contradiction. Hachatani b'Shabbos doraisa delokanis. Here it says that on Shabbos by a doraisa there is no fine. V'gabe shvius katani bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid yayoker. And by shvius, by the Shemitah year, Rabbi Meir says there's a fine, whether by shogeg or by mezid. And Rashi says v'ua denami to Rabbi Yehuda kasha. The truth is the same question is the same contradiction applies to Rabbi Yehuda, not only Rabbi Meir. Elamishum the Tanakam, Rabbi Meir who nakat lei. Since the Tanakam is Rabbi Meir, the first Tana is Rabbi Meir, so we mention Rabbi Meir. Umaskana aliv de tarvayim mitartinula. In the end, we'll answer the question for both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. But the Gemara continues, but according to your reasoning, Tikshi lachi gufa, this price itself is difficult without dealing with the contradiction. Michdi hado raisa v'hado raisa. Let us see, both cases are do raisa. Maishna Shabbos u Maishna Shvius. Why are we making a distinction between Shabbos and Shvius? Why are we saying that on Shabbos, let's say, according to Rabbi Meir, we're more lenient, and on Shvius, according to Rabbi Meir, we are stricter, and by Rabbi Yehuda, we say the opposite. And the Gemara says, Ella rather hasam kedekatani taima. Over there, the reason is as follows. Rabbi Meir says his reason. Amar Rabbi Meir says, Mipnei ma ani omer v'Shabbos v'shogeg yikayim b'mezid yayoker or v'shvius b'shogeg b'mezid yayoker. Why do I say that on Shabbos you can be lenient when it's b'shogeg, b'mezid we're strict, and on Shemitah year we're strict whether it's shogeg or mezid? Mipnei sheYisrael monin l'shvius, because Klal Yisrael they count from the Shemitah year. What he means to say is everyone will remember and realize when it was planted in terms of the violation of Shemitah. Rashi says monin Yisrael l'shvius, they count according to Shvius. Yisrael monin shnos netiosein l'shvius, they count their years from the Shemitah cycle. Because everyone needs to count shnos hanatiyah. They always need to count the years where something is planted for the rules of la'arla, v'l'revoi, k'sheyotze misr ola mechalin oso b'revius. You have rules of arla in the third year, and then you have halachas in the fourth year that have to do with chilul, redeeming it. Haroem mona hasharim l'mafreya v'yodeya shanata b'shvius. Anyone watching this will be able to count, and he'll know that this was planted during the Shemitah year. V'yasi l'mishrei natiyah b'shvius. So if people see this, they're going to end up permitting natiyah and shvius, and that's why Rabbi Meir is more strict when it comes to the Shemitah year, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Dalid Amud Aleph.